welcome to Inform New Hampshire. My name is Dean, and this is Richie to my right. And we are here on Manchester Cable Television Channel 23, and we also have a YouTube channel called Inform New Hampshire, and a Facebook group called Inform New Hampshire. So if you're on the YouTube channel, please hit the like button. That helps us out, and subscribe if you will. Just a couple things to note here today. This is going to be the last of our shows in the Manchester studio here. We will probably still use the YouTube channel. However, we are ending the show after today, and that just has to do with me moving out of town. So Richie prepared a very good show here today, so we're going to proceed with that. But before that, I just want to give a quick thank you to Richie and let you all know that Richie's been pretty much the backbone of this show and has, in times of difficulty, kept it going. And so thank you so much, Richie, and great to have you on the team.
Feelings mutual, Dean.
Yeah, really appreciate it. So so let's get started. Where do you want to start? With Jerry DeLamus?
Well, yeah, I want to say something about Jerry DeLamus because if this is our last show, I do want to say that, you know, Jerry's an innocent man and he's been sitting in jail for 2 years. I think it'll be 2 years in about 3 weeks. And I understand that Trump is draining the swamp and he's trying to do the right thing, and it takes a long time because all the people that he's trying to put in jail, or at least get them out of power, control all the money and resources on the planet. So it's a difficult task. But I'd like to see Jerry released ASAP because he's innocent. Everybody else in the Bundy situation has been pretty much let go. Him and Greg Burleson are the only two I'm aware of in jail. So I would ask you to continue to send money to Jerry and Sue to help with their legal aid fund, and also keep them in your prayers. It's a shame that an innocent man, someone who stood up to the tyrants, is in jail. So please help. The other thing I want to mention before we start the show is the National Liberty Alliance. I've been with them for 5 years, as has Dean. We are state coordinators for the state of New Hampshire. And I believe in them wholeheartedly because they have something on their website that says only the people can save America, and that's true. And we're going to demonstrate that. That's what the show is about tonight, for the most part. So they're trying to print 80,000 books. I think they're 75 or 80-page books to give out to every sheriff in the United States. 25 copies to every county in America. So to print the 80,000 copies and to mail them cost them about $100,000. So I'm asking, it might sound like an awful lot of money, but if 20,000 people in America out of the 300 million send one $5 check, it'll cover the cost of this, and it'll get it done. So if you want to be a part of the solution, I strongly suggest that you do that. Go to nationallibertyalliance.org. I think you can find their address there. If you want to donate money to them, one-time situation, pass the word along. It's about time we got off our butts, stepped out of our comfort zones, and did the right thing. This is one of the right things we should be doing. Okay, with that, I guess we'll start the show. Unless, did you have something to say first, Dean? Or?
No, that's it for now. You wanna?
Well, I wanted to talk about, number one, we talked about it last week, Colonel House. 100 years ago, he was a close friend and confidant to Woodrow Wilson, and he had a private conversation with Wilson, and he talked about how America is being duped by all the things that are going on, the Federal Reserve Bank, the income tax, all of that stuff, and that the system that they've weaved is so complex that nobody's going to be able to figure it out, and if 1 in a million are able to figure it out, they have plausible deniability. And I know we're not going to read it. Dean tried to read it last week.
I got a good copy.
You got a clean copy?
Yeah.
If you want to, sure.
Okay, it's pretty good, and I know I chopped it up last week. So
well, I did that too. Yeah, I apologize.
Very soon, every American will be required to register their biological property in a national system designed to keep track of the people.
Keep in mind, this is 100 years ago now.
Yep. And that will operate under the ancient system of pledging. By such methodology, we can compel people to submit to our agenda, which will affect our security as a chargeback for our fiat paper currency. Every American will be forced to register, or suffer not being able to work and earn a living. They will be our chattel, and we will hold the security interest over them forever, by operation of the law merchant under the scheme of secured transactions. Americans, by unknowingly or unwittingly delivering the bills of lading to us, will be rendered bankrupt and insolvent, forever to remain economic slaves through our taxation secured by their pledges. They will be stripped of their rights and given a commercial value designed to make us a profit, and they will be none the wiser, for not one man in a million could ever figure out our plans, and if by accident one or two would figure it out, we have an arsenal of plausible deniability. After all, this is the only logical way to fund a government, by floating liens and debt to the registrants in the form of benefits and privileges. This will inevitably reap to us huge profits beyond our wildest expectations, and leave every American a contributor or to this fraud which we will call social insurance. Without realizing it, every American will insure us for any loss we have or may incur, and in this manner every American will unknowingly be our servant, however begrudgingly. The people will become helpless and without any hope for their redemption, and we will employ the high office of the presidents and our dummy corporation to foment this plot against America.
Unbelievable.
Yeah.
He'll be used as chattel. Now, keep in mind, this was 100 years ago. This guy's, you can find him on the internet. Colonel Edward Mandell House. He's not really a real colonel. He's a communist piece of garbage. But anyway, this is what he talked about 100 years ago. I don't want to say exactly when that speech was, not speech, that conversation took place, but I believe it was 1914. It's just my guess. Anyway, in January of 1961, President Eisenhower, with his farewell address, said, he warned us about the military-industrial complex. And what I didn't know, I just found this out in researching this stuff. 3 months later, I mean, I know Kennedy took office after Eisenhower, but I didn't know this was so close. 3 months later, JFK warned us at the Washington Press Corps speech in April of '61 about basically the same thing, only he didn't call it military-industrial complex, he called it the conspiracy. Then you have Ronald Reagan in 1981 warning us about that. And I don't know, did you want to read that, Dean, or no?
Sure. Yep. I think I put it on the bottom here. Yep. Freedom is never more than one generation away from extinction. We didn't pass it on to our children in the bloodstream. The only way they can inherit the freedom we have known is if we fight for it, protect it, defend it, and then hand it to them with the well-fought lessons of how they, in their lifetime, must do the same. And if you and I don't do this, then you and I may well spend our sunset years telling our children and our grandchildren what it was like in America when men were free.
Okay. The point that I wanted to make with all of this is that Colonel House talked about what was happening to all of us, and that was 100 years ago. We didn't, obviously we weren't around, but even today, in 2018, most of us don't know what's going on. Well, the presidents, 3 presidents warned us, and we didn't heed their warning. So what I wanted to say, and this whole thing came about because there was some groups in New Hampshire saying we got to put Republicans in office. We got to load them up and put Republicans in office. And I've never been a Republican, and I've never been a Democrat because I can't stand the two-party system. It's designed for chumps as far as I'm concerned. It's my personal opinion. But if you're going to take sides as an American. Now, in order for us to fix a problem, your car breaks down, you go have it fixed. Your house, you spring a leak in the pipe, you go fix it. You have a problem with your relationship, you go fix it. Well, our government is broken. You can't send people into a broken system and expect them to fix it when they don't know what the problem is. And I'm not here to tell you what the problems are, but I am here to point out some of the problems that you can fix if you want to. And I'll tell you a simple matter, actually, is I was 14. Think back when you were a kid. When was your first job? Mine was when I was 14. I took a job in a hospital in the supply room. My very first day on the job, they brought in some papers and put them in front of me and said, fill it out. And I filled it out. I never questioned anything. I dutifully and obediently filled out those papers. I never said a word about it. And that's authorizing the government or my employer to take taxes out of my check. The problem that I have with it now, 50 years later, which is just a little bit too late, and I'll get into how much money they stole from me, or deceived, well, whatever, we'll talk about it. They took a lot of money out of me, but they did it through deception. It wasn't honesty. And everybody out there listening, if you're an employer, the government doesn't pay you to be an agent of the government. So for you to sit back and say, okay, I got to collect all this taxes from my employees, and then I got to send it in. Are you an agent of the government? Are you getting paid from the government to do this? I'm contending that you don't have to do it. Okay? There is no law compelling you to do it. There can't be. All right? Now, don't take my word for anything that I say here, because I'm going to give you some facts that you can check out for yourself. And I strongly urge you to do that. But if I work, and I'm using round numbers here, if I work 50 years in my life and I make $50,000 a year, that's $2.5 million over the course of my lifetime, 50 years working. If the tax rate is 20% for the government, that means that I paid them $500,000, $500,000 over the 50-year period. Or another way to think about it is, for 10 years, I gave the government my paycheck. 10 years. Without question, I gave it to them. And I'm here to tell you emphatically, there is no law in the United States of America compelling you to pay a tax on your time and labor. Because that's what it is. You're going to your employer saying, I'm going to give you 40 hours. In return, you give me X amount of dollars. Where does the government come into play in that? I will say this. Income tax is lawful. But the word income means something different than we think. We would talk, oh, you got to pay an income tax on your check. Oh, okay, I'll pay my income tax. I'm going to be a good little doobie. Well, income is defined in the Eisner versus Macumber case, and I think that goes back to, well, I don't want to say when it goes, because I honestly don't remember right now. But they define income as profits from corporate activity. You buy stocks and bonds from a corporation, they send you a dividend check every year. You have to pay a tax on that dividend. But your time and your labor, your wages and your compensation, that's totally different. And by the way, think about this. If the government's telling you that you have to pay a tax on your time, which is something we're all short of on this world, life is really short. I'll give you another name for that. It's called slavery. The government has taken 10 years of my life through taxes, that $500,000 we just talked about. I know that's an arbitrary figure. But they've taken that money from me. And I didn't even question it. I paid it over my lifetime. And you paid it too. It's about time we start looking into this and saying, hey, wait a minute, there's something wrong with this picture. Another resource that I'm going to give you is the U.S. Treasury Department. And I believe it's Code 31, I want to say Section 3124, but I'm not 100% certain there. And it defines income for you. And it isn't your time and your labor. If you look up the cases, the Supreme Court cases that deal with time and labor, you don't pay taxes on it. Your time and your labor is just that, yours. It's no one else's. And for someone to come in and say you got to pay it, here's what I'm getting at. The patriots out there and the people that give a damn, you have to look into this information and you have to say, wait a minute, he's right or he's wrong, whatever way you want to do it. But look into the information. Don't listen to what I'm saying. Please, look into the information and find out. That Eisner versus Macomber case, and by the way, I'll give you two documentaries and a book. And you can, I should have told you to get a paper and pencil, but you can replay this, I guess, if you're on YouTube. What episode is this, Dean? 97?
Yeah.
Okay. Episode 97. Go to Aaron Russo's video, Free America, Freedom to Fascism, and watch that. Excellent video. He did a great job. The second one is Understanding the Truth About the IRS. Now, these are the tax, why can't I think of the name? I'm sorry. It's Robert Schultz's group out in New York, the We the People Foundation, Truth in Taxes. I forget exactly what the name is now, but they did two documentaries that are really going to help you understand this thing. And the third thing to do is read the book, Cracking the Code. The guy that wrote that book spent some time in jail because he wrote it, because he's telling people the truth. And our government is so corrupt that they put people in jail. Irwin Schiff died in prison because he fought paying the income tax. He died in prison a couple of years ago. These are things, you know, if we're contributing to this, and by the way, the money that is taken from your check, this is from the Grace Commission, which was convened by the Reagan administration. The Grace Commission said every penny that's taken from your paycheck goes to pay the debt, or I'm sorry, the interest on the debt, the national debt. Well, that money goes to the Federal Reserve Bank, a privately owned bank. The three principal shareholders are Jacob Rothschild, Goldman Sachs. Wait a minute, didn't Goldman Sachs get a bank bailout back in 2008 with Obama? Hundreds of billions of dollars, and we still pump money into them through the Federal Reserve Bank. And the third one is the Schiff family out of Italy. These are the three main stockholders in the Federal Reserve System. Privately owned bank. And you have no obligation to pay a privately owned bank. You don't owe them a nickel, contrary to what they're telling you. It's unlawful for them to even take over the money. Anyway, that's one thing. The other thing I wanted to talk about is, excuse me for sniffling too, I've got a flu or cold or something, but the driver's license. When we were kids, and this has to do with the job situation, that's why I want you to think about this. When we were kids, when I was, 15 or 16, and I had older friends, and I'd say, oh, geez, I can't wait till I'm 16 and a half and get my driver's license. Well, I never questioned, do I need a driver's license? I just said everybody else is getting it. Monkey see, monkey do. I must need it. Well, you do some research and you find out, no, you don't need a driver's license in the United States of America. You absolutely don't. We granted authority to the state and federal government to regulate commerce. So if you're operating a truck or any type of equipment for commerce, then you need a driver's license. That's not an issue. But if you run out into your driveway, hop in your car, go down to the store for a gallon of milk, you don't need a driver's license. The state cannot license you for a right. And I'll give you the three court cases that's almost ironclad. It's Marbury versus Madison, Murdoch versus Pennsylvania, and Shuttlesworth versus Birmingham, Alabama. Another way to find this out is go to Dick Marple in court on YouTube. He's a state representative here who was arrested for driving without a license. And he's still fighting the issue. And he's trying to file legislation to tell these people. But the state makes $200 million on driver's licenses and registrations, and I think it's inspection stickers too. They're not going to give it up. They're going to fight. Well, whose government is it? Is it ours or theirs? If you're willing to fight for it, my thing is don't get a driver's license. Don't register your car. You don't need to. But don't do it on my say-so. Look up the law. In the United States Supreme Court decision, and this will lead you to other cases, but it's Shapiro versus Thompson, United States Supreme Court case, on the right to travel. If you want to exercise your right to travel, that's exactly what you have to do. Exercise it. If you don't do it, you're going to lose it. And that's what the state's trying to do. Flex their muscle, say, no, 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 you don't have that. And I actually heard a prosecutor on Dick Marple's case say, no, the state licenses people, and we grant them the privilege. Well, I want to say this very, very clearly. In the state constitution in New Hampshire, Article 7 in the Bill of Rights, it says very clearly, the people of this state, and I want you to just remember those words, the people of this state. That's who we're talking about. The people of this state have the sole and exclusive right of governing themselves as a free, sovereign, and independent state. Who's got the sole and exclusive right? The people of this state. Not the legislature, not the governor, and not the judiciary. The people of this state. So how does the state grant me a privilege when it's my right to travel? And that's already been established in the state court and in the United States Supreme Court. How does that work exactly? And by the way, in Article 8 of the Bill of Rights in the state constitution, the New Hampshire state constitution, it says all power, not some, not half, not three-quarters, all power is derived from the people. Well, if it's derived from the people, who the hell are you to grant me a privilege? It's time we stood up across this country. And I'm not talking about insurrection. I'm not talking about harming everybody. But, you know, damn it, if we're not breaking the law, what are we doing wrong? You don't need a driver's license. The law says so. So why are we continuing to pay it? Why are we continuing to make this a bigger system? Just recently on the radio, and this is outside, I don't have this in the notes here, but the homeless people in New Hampshire, they were referring to the veterans, I guess. They sought more money for the homeless shelter to put more people in there. And I thought to myself, isn't that great? That's going to solve the problem. People are still homeless. We're just putting more of them into a shelter. So that's great. That works fine. It grows the size of the government because now we got more money from the federal government to feed the state government to put more homeless veterans into a shelter. How about if we bring jobs into New Hampshire and these other states and we start getting these people jobs so they can take care of themselves? Excuse me. These are the things that I've been wanting to talk about for a long, long time, and thanks to Dean for allowing me to do this, because I think it's very important. One other very important point, do you have something, Dean, you want to jump in on? Or?
Nope. No, I'm good.
All right. The other thing I wanted to bring up is there's a few things, actually. A traffic ticket. A traffic ticket is a bill of attainder. And in the Constitution, excuse me, in the Constitution, it clearly says a bill of attainder, well, it says legislature will pass no bills of attainder. It doesn't say they might do it. It says you won't do it. Well, I had a talk with a state rep, and he said, well, when I get a ticket, I go down to the courthouse and I argue it and I get out of it. And I says, no, I don't think you understand, Representative. It says clearly, the law says clearly, you don't pass it. It doesn't say go ahead and pass it and then you can argue it in court. It says don't pass it. So why did you pass it? A traffic ticket, and by the way, a bill of attainder is a legislative act that deprives you of your due process rights. And due process is the Bill of Rights. Okay? It depends on what's applicable to you. I mean, if you got a search warrant, then it's obviously the Fourth Amendment. If it has to do with a trial by jury, that's a different situation altogether. The Fifth or the Seventh Amendment. But the point I'm trying to make is simply that they can't pass a bill of attainder, but they do. And for you cops out there, because I don't want to go easy on you guys, when you stop a car and you write a ticket, you're breaking the law. One of these days, people are going to find out and they're going to start taking you to task and they're going to start suing you in court. Now, it's your ignorance that you don't know this, just like it was my ignorance most of my life. I didn't know it either. But when you find these things out, you get pretty angry and say, Jesus, this whole system is about money. That's all. It's not about justice. It's about money. Let's generate money so we can keep our job, get nice big fat pensions. That's not what it's about. I wasn't put on planet Earth so that I can fund government. It wasn't my function, and it isn't going to be my function anymore. They have a limited role in my life. So, and I'm mentioning these things because it's something that you should be concerned with. Check out a bill of container. By the way, I wrote down a couple more videos. You can go to Carl Miller. It's C-A-R-L, Carl Miller, on YouTube. He's got a 3-series video, and I think the guy's really good. He covers a lot of territory with Supreme Court cases. He reads out of Am Jurisprudence, Volume 16. Quotes several court cases. He helps you go to where you need to go to find this information. So start looking it up. Unfortunately, it's taken me about 20 years. I'm a little bit on the slow side, but it took me about 20 years to find out all this stuff. I wanted to make sure I knew what the hell I was talking about before I came before people and said something. But if we want to turn this country around, why do we feed the Federal Reserve Bank billions upon billions of dollars every day? Keep pumping it into them when we don't have to. The law doesn't say you have to. Don't take my word for it. Please check it out. Why do we continue to get a driver's license for a personal vehicle? And I'm not going to get into it. They talk about automobile and what's the other word they use? Motor vehicle. You know, because the lawyers like to play on words. Well, I don't care what you call it. If you're not using it in commerce, you can call it a dog sled. I could care less. You don't need a license for them to license. I'll even go a step further, and this is just my personal opinion. I'm not going to get into this stuff, but for fishing and hunting, if you go fishing and hunting for food and they tell you you need a license, that's BS too. If you're going to feed yourself, you need a license from the state? Are you serious? Now, having said all of this, we all need to act responsibly, and we take responsibility for our actions. But what we should be doing is questioning what's going on. Filling out that first job application, did you question it? I didn't. I just filled it out. First time I got a license, oh, I can't wait to get my driver's license. My buddy got it, you know, and my 2 buddies got it. They're older than me. You don't question it. You just do it. So for the past 50 years of my life, and I'm trying to stop the young kids out there from doing this, don't waste all this money and time doing it because it's ridiculous. Stop it anyway. That's my advice to you. Check it out, though. Excuse me. Check it out and make sure.
You got the 7th and 8th Amendment?
Yeah, I want to touch on one other thing, though,
Okay.
in this report. I think
Sure.
that was first, but Dean and I and a few other people, I think there was 5 other people total, we approached the governor on September 28th last year. And we put together this 15-page report, which documents 31 criminal violations that the state is perpetrating on the people of New Hampshire. And we sat with John Famella, the general counsel for the governor, Governor Sununu here in New Hampshire, and we basically explained to him what the report was, went over everything, and I said to him, John, I'd really like to have a follow-up conversation because I know you must have questions and you didn't have a chance to ask any. Well, on February 5th, I just got a letter from him. February 5th, and we met in September. And his letter said, basically, you should go to the Judiciary Advisory Review Board, something. I don't even remember what it was. And what we're doing, and I want to make this very clear to people, we asked for the repeal of Article 72A and 73A. Article 72A says that, and I'm just highlighting the points, that the superior courts in the state of New Hampshire are courts of general jurisdiction. There are no general jurisdictions, and you know, I know the judges and the lawyers are going to argue about that. There's no general jurisdiction. There's equity law, there's common law, and there's admiralty law, and that's the only type of law we have in America. Unless you want to get into, you know, divorce courts. I'm talking about the 3 major aspects of the law. Well, common law they did away with. The bar, the lawyers and the judges in this country have done away with it, and they were complicit in the act. And I'm saying that it was fraud, deceit, deception, subversion, criminal conversion, and God, the list goes on and on and on. But that's 72A anyway. 73A And I was reading this, and it said, all right, the general court, the legislature, grants the authority to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court of New Hampshire to promulgate rules for the court system, which makes sense to me. Nothing wrong with that. But then they continued on in this legislation, and it says, and those rules will have the force of law. Now, what the legislature just did was grant lawmaking power to the Chief Justice of the Supreme Court, which they don't have the authority to do. But if you violate a rule of the court, you're breaking the law, according to what it is now. When we pointed that out to them, and they said, oh, no, 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 no. And now they're sending me to the judiciary, or sending us to the judiciary to, not protest it, what's the word I'm looking for? Take our grievance to them. All I asked the governor to do is put it on the ballot next November so the people can decide the issue. And not only did he not do that, the governor and Mr. Fomella, didn't have one question for any of us that were in attendance at that meeting, and one of the attendees was a state representative. So this is the type of thing we get in our state government, and I'm tired of it, and I'm pushing back. And if it means that I got to go to jail like Jerry DeLemus because they want to put me in jail, it won't because I did anything wrong, I can guarantee you that. But if they want to do that, put another innocent man in jail. Let these idiots that are running the place go free. You got to understand the law. Like I said, I'm not put on planet Earth to provide income for the state or federal government. Those days are over. Anyway, my plea to the people out there is simply to watch this video, look at some of the reference material. I don't know if I covered all the laws here, Dean, did I? I might have missed some.
Fifth Amendment, State Constitution, Power of General Court, you did, yep, 15-page report, 703. Yeah.
Yeah, I just want to make sure you check this out, please. Don't act on what I say. I don't want anybody to get in trouble. And you really do have to know what you're doing or have some idea. And even then, I'm not going to lie to you, you can still be put in jail. But enough of us stand up together, so be it. So be it. If we're doing the right thing, I'll always do the right thing in life. Always.
What do you think would be the reason that the governor, number one, didn't respond to us, and John Flamella told us to go to the judiciary, so they basically didn't acknowledge the report?
Well, I can tell you what I think, Dean, and that is that they're kicking the can down the road.
Yeah.
All he has to do, and think about this, if he doesn't want to get into a controversial matter, put it on the ballot and let the people decide. He's not making any decision.
Right.
The people are, right? And if the people vote in favor of this, they might vote against it too, I don't really know. But if they vote in favor of it, that's it. The people decided. It's their law.
Mm-hmm.
The law doesn't belong to the government. The Bill of Rights is for the government to obey. And part second of the state constitution is the form of government that we told them to operate under.
Yep.
And by the way, I don't know if you want to do on the Fifth Amendment, can you read that with the punctuations in it? Because there's a reason for that. If you have it right there in front.
Is it in the outline?
No, it's it's with the Seventh and Eighth Amendment. It should be in the second. It might be down the bottom. I'm not sure. I don't read because my eyesight's failing me, so Dean takes care of that.
Was it on your outline pages?
No.
Yeah.
No.
Okay.
No.
Yeah. I have, oh, here we go, Article
It should start
5.
off with the Seventh Amendment on the top.
Yep, I got
Yeah,
it.
just Article 5.
You want the 5 one?
Yeah.
Power to make laws, elect officers, define their powers and duties. That's Article 5. Impose fines and assess taxes. Prohibited from authorizing towns to aid certain corporations. And farther, full power and authority are hereby given and granted to the said general court
Hold on. I'm going to interrupt you, Dean, but I wanted you to read it with the punctuation marks.
Yep.
Did you catch that? Full power and what is granted to
Yep.
the general court?
Full power and authority.
And
are
authority is
hereby
granted. Who do you think is granting that full power and authority? Article 7. The people of the state have the sole and exclusive right. The people are granting them the authority. So what makes you think when it comes to a driver's license, they have the authority to grant you a privilege to drive? You have the right to travel. Anyway, I'll stop there, but if you can read with the punctuations, there's a reason for it.
Okay, and further, full power and authority are hereby given and granted to the said general court from time to time to make, ordain, and establish all manner of wholesome and reasonable orders, laws, statutes, ordinances, directions, and instructions.
Hold on right there then. I just wanted to point out that the legislature's function, both on the federal level and the state level. On the state level, we have part-time legislatures here. We pay them $100 a year. The purpose of that is that a legislature is supposed to regulate the behavior of the state government, state employees. Whether they're bureaucrats, elected, or appointed officials, really doesn't matter. That's the job of the legislature, not to rule over my life. And we're reading from the law, by the way. Constitution of New Hampshire is the law of the land. That's what it says. Constitution is the law of the land. Now, I know that it's been stolen from us, but I'm trying to point out to you that what it says isn't what we're getting. But the law says it's in our favor. The general court has been granted powers by us. Their job, and think of the word Dean just read, he said directions or instructions. Right, that's directions or instructions for state employees. You will do this. You will operate this way. It's got nothing to do with me. And if you want to go to the federal Constitution, the United States Constitution, it says, and I'm sorry that I can't quote it, I haven't had a chance to look it up, but it says that Congress shall meet no less than once per year in the month of December. The reason they put that in there is because they knew Congress wouldn't have to meet very often to regulate the behavior of federal government employees in Washington, D.C., because that's the only place they're supposed to be. But now with 350 million agencies that they have, and they're all over the world, things are a little bit different. What I'm trying to say is simply that things have gotten totally out of hand, and the Congress is supposed to be a part-time legislature too. Not anymore. Full-time corruption at its best. I'm sorry, go ahead.
No, no worries. Just a quick question on when you were commenting on the common law, and you mentioned the equity law and Admiralty law. How did they take away the common law from us?
Oh boy, that's another show.
Yeah.
No, it really is. They did it through deception and fraud and everything else. As a matter of fact, one of the things that we're trying to do, if you're talking about New Hampshire Constitution, 72A and 73A, we asked the governor to repeal that.
Right.
Put that on the ballot. That would be the first step in bringing back common law to the state of New Hampshire. Common law is the law of the people. And it basically, if you go back in time, it reverts back to the Bible, the Ten Commandments. Okay, thou shalt not kill, thou shalt not steal. Not, thou shalt not spit on the sidewalk, thou shalt not jaywalk, thou shalt not do all this other stuff. Look at the signs on the street. Don't walk, walk, do this, do that. It's all BS. It's all BS. We all have a responsibility to act accordingly because we have to live with other people. But if we don't act responsibly, then we're depending on the state to take care of that for us. And that's why we are where we are. So my thing is, let's get back to common law because it is the law of the land and it's what we're supposed to be under, not this general admiralty jurisdiction that we have in the court. And admiralty is the law of the sea, okay? Or commerce, same thing, same thing. When you see the gold fringe flags on state and federal buildings, that's basically martial law rule. That's all it means. Admiralty jurisdiction, but it's martial law rule. You'll have to look that up on, I believe it's Title 4 for the flags, and find out for yourself. There's a lot of information. We can't even go over it all. Unfortunately, this is our last show. But I do want to encourage people, especially you patriots out there, look into what we're saying here and stand up. I don't like talking down to people because I don't like it myself, but be a man. Stand up. Tell them to shove it up their butts, the driver's licenses. Don't pay the Federal Reserve Bank. Find out about this first, though. Please find out about it. And we just gave you 3 resources. The Aaron Russo's video, documentary, America, Freedom to Fascism, Understanding the Truth About the IRS, and Cracking the Code, the book. That's what's helped me immensely. Those 3 things. Carl Miller is another one. Michael Badnarik is a great resource. These are all on YouTube, by the way. They did documentaries, and they're almost classroom. They are classroom-type documentaries where they're trying to teach people and help people. They're free. It's right out there for you to look at. Another one is me and Dean had her out, was it last year? 2 years ago now.
2 years ago, yeah.
Chris Ann Hall. Another one is Publius Hulda, Publius Huldah. She's a former JAG attorney, retired, but very, very good. Chris Ann Hall is a former attorney. She goes around the country teaching people about the Constitution. And, you know, I've had all kinds of people criticize me. The Constitution's dead. It's dead because we allowed it to die. It can be resurrected, but everybody has to stand to resurrect it. At least that's my opinion. You can say I'm wrong if you'd like. But if we sit by and we do nothing, I don't know where the hell we're going to go. I really don't.
You've said a lot about income taxes. I've got a 5-minute video here on an IRS agent that is now offering a $50,000 to anyone who can produce the law. You want to play it?
She's a CPA. Yeah, Kristen, can you carry this?
Yep. So let's give it a run. See if she. I've got to get the volume on.
Sorry, I said Kristen. Kirsten.
Citizen working day in and day out to pay an income tax.
The We the People Foundation for Constitutional Education put a full-page ad in the USA Today on July 7th, 2000. And within the body of that ad was a $50,000 challenge for anyone that could show the law. And to me, $50,000 is a lot of money. So I went after that and did the research based on the fact that I thought, let's put this baby to bed. I'm hearing all these rumors. You know, I'm going to kill 2 birds with 1 stone. I'll answer these people's questions that are asking me, and then I'll win this $50,000. And, you know, based on the research that I did throughout the year 2000 and that I'm still doing, I have not found that law. I've asked Congress, we've asked a lot of people in the IRS commissioners, helpers. They can't answer, because if they answer, the American people are going to know that this whole thing is a fraud.
There is no law. There is no law that requires the average American worker in the private sector to pay a direct, unapportioned tax on their labor and compensation for services. There is no law.
I really expected that, of course, there's a law that you can point to in the law book, the code, that requires you to file a tax return. Of course there is. Maybe I don't know what it is right then as he was speaking to me, but sure. So naively, I agreed to go off and research it and get back to him. 3.5 months later, I was at that point where I couldn't find the statute that clearly made a person liable, at least not me and most people I know. And I had no choice in my mind except to resign.
I had to leave the IRS because I presented evidence that I had accumulated indicating that the agency was violating the law and violating people's rights. And I asked the agency for a response to my sincere concerns. And the answer I got was that they would not respond to my concerns and that they would provide me with the paperwork necessary to tender my resignation.
You can look through the statutes and look for the law that requires you to pay. And when you do that, you can't identify a law that requires the average person in America who earns a wage and works in private business to pay an income tax.
American citizens, along with the foundation, have been asking the IRS to specifically provide them with the underlying legal foundation upon which they administer and enforce the personal income tax laws in our country.
At the national level, when people would attempt to contact somebody of a much higher authority, say the commissioner, same kind of thing. They would get answers that were in effect non-answers.
You have to understand that an agency which will unlawfully impose a tax that doesn't exist is not going to care. If we, the people, don't know what our rights are, they're not going to tell us.
If Americans just learned that the IRS was actually knowingly deceiving them, that would be enough for them to rise up and put a stop to it.
100% of what is collected is absorbed solely by interest on the federal debt. All individual income tax revenues are gone before one nickel is spent on the services taxpayers expect from government. People have been told, that you need this income tax system to fund government, which is absolutely ridiculous. I mean, my question is, well, if that's true, how did we fund government from 1776 to 1913?
The main purpose of the income tax is not to raise revenue, but to redistribute wealth and to control society.
A lot of people might say, well, gee, if there wasn't an income tax, what would happen to education? They don't understand that education is paid for the most part, out of state and local taxes, your property tax. People might say, well, how are we going to build and maintain our highways if there's no money coming into the government? We need our highways. There is a tax on every gallon of gasoline that people buy. Proceeds from the income tax do not pay for highway construction.
I believe that in both spirit and substance, our tax system has come to be un-American. Death and taxes may be inevitable, but unjust taxes are not.
This small booklet includes the Constitution of the United States, the Bill of Rights, the Declaration of Independence. This is a document that every citizen should read. It's a document which freed an entire nation. This is the Internal Revenue Code, and this document, and the unlawful application of this document by the Internal Revenue Service has enslaved the nation that this document attempted to free.
Yeah, I'd like to say a couple things on that theme while I've got it fresh in my mind.
Sure.
The IRS is a corporate entity. It is not a government agency, like a lot of people think. It's a collection agency for the bar, for the banks, however you want to look at it. And one of the things they do, you know that public sector employees, government workers, have an obligation to pay a tax on their wages. Okay? I don't know why that is, but they do. So when you get in court, the judge and the lawyers, who will have absolutely no sympathy for, they're scumbags, they turn around and say, are you an employee? What they're asking you is, are you an employee of the government? But they're not telling you that. They're saying, are you an employee? And you say, geez, yeah, I'm an employee. I work for this company, saying that to yourself. You answer, yes, I'm an employee. Well, they're taking it to mean, because of the deception that they're under, that you're admitting to be an employee of the government and you have an obligation to pay taxes. So they're tricking you. It's like taking a mice through a maze. They're just leading you through the maze with their words. And their words are very, very harmful. Like I said, employee. There's so many of them. The lawyers use all the words that they want. And anybody, and I think some of these lawyers are just ignorant and they don't know the difference either. I'll give them that. But judges, forget about it. You're a judge, you're a crook. If you're paying this type of lip service to people and screwing them in court, like the judge with Dick Marple, she totally ignored the law and fined Dick Marple for driving without a license. You don't need a license. And it doesn't matter what a judge says, it matters what the law says. When the judges start making the laws, hey, we should start listening, but right now they don't. And we got to be cognizant of it. And you heard on that video, that's I believe that's from, or is it? Is that Aaron Russo's or the other one?
No, it's the other one. We the People Foundation, something like that.
We the People Foundation. Yeah, it's Robert Schultz's group. I first started out with him, I think it was back in 2000 or something. That's how I got started on the tax information. And the government can go to hell. They can come throw me in jail. They're not getting another nickel in my time and labor. No more taxes for you guys. I'll pay taxes, don't get me wrong, but not out of my paycheck. That ain't happening. Anyway, that's my feeling on the thing, and I think people should stand up together as Americans. That is the solution. That is one of the solutions to the problem. We continue to give through our ignorance. I meant to say this at the beginning of the show. Ignorance is the problem, and education is the remedy. Just like they said on here for the We the People Foundation. It's our ignorance that gets us into trouble. You got a little book, and it's right here, actually, the state and federal constitution. Very thin book. Read this and understand it. Now, I understand that it doesn't exist. They've stolen it from us. But I'm fighting to get it back. I want my freedoms back. I want my rights back. The next generation deserves that. Because our parents, some of them fought in the war. Some of them may have died in the war. I mean, whatever the reason was, we owe it to the next generation to leave a better world. And we're not doing that at all. So I'm asking people in America to stand. Stand, not talk. The talk is over. And I'm not talking about stand with a gun, so please don't get me wrong on that score. Stand through education. Educate yourself. We've given you some information here. I hope we mentioned all of these documentaries and books that you can. Oh, I missed one. The other one is Meet Your Straw Man. You want to watch that. It's like a cartoon type of a thing on Facebook, but and I think it's 4 minutes long. It's not long at all. But as funny as it may be, it's true. And you really need to watch that. People will look at it and say, that's crazy. No, it's true. What they've done to you. You're a straw man. Look at your driver's license with the all caps name. That's called Capitis Diminutio Maxima. The all capital letters. They've taken you from a person, a human being, and reduced you to a person, a corporation. Look it up in etymology, E-T-Y-M-O-L-O-G-Y, on your iPad, or iPhone rather, or on the computer, wherever you're at. Look that up in the computer, type in person, and it'll say, human being, and that's what you expect it to say. But read down a little further, and it says, in legal use, a corporation or body politic. Is that what you are? Because it's not what I am. It's what the government has made you. It's called criminal conversion. Taken you from a person and made you a corporation, so now the IRS and all these other organizations can deal with you. Well, you got to serve notice to these idiots. Hey, I'm not playing your game anymore. Too much deception and fraud and everything. It's just not working. My recommendation is education for everybody. And I don't know what we got for time left here.
We got about 6.5 minutes. You want to listen to Kennedy?
Yeah, if you can put on a short version of them, sure.
Yep, I got it at the 5-minute mark.
This is the warning that JFK gave us in 1961.
Okay.
My topic tonight is a more sober one, of concern to publishers as well as editors. I want to talk about our common responsibilities in the face of a common danger. The events of recent weeks may have helped to illuminate that challenge for some, but the dimensions of its threat have loomed large on the horizon for many years. Whatever our hopes may be for the future, for reducing this threat or living with it, there is no escaping either the gravity or the totality of its challenge to our survival and to our security. A challenge that confronts us in unaccustomed ways in every sphere of human activity. This deadly challenge imposes upon our society two requirements of direct concern, both to the press and to the President. Two requirements that may seem almost contradictory in tone, but which must be reconciled and fulfilled if we are to meet this national peril. I refer first to the need for far greater public information, and second, to the need for far greater official secrecy. The very word secrecy is repugnant in a free and open society, and we are, as a people, inherently and historically opposed to secret societies, to secret oaths, and to secret proceedings. We decided long ago that the dangers of excessive and unwarranted concealment of pertinent facts far outweighed the dangers which are cited to justify it. Even today, there is little value in opposing the threat of a closed society by imitating its arbitrary restrictions. Even today, there is little value in ensuring the survival of our nation if our traditions do not survive with it. And there is very grave danger that an announced need for increased security will be seized upon by those anxious to expand its meaning to the very limits of official censorship and concealment. That I do not intend to permit to the extent that it's in my control. And no official of my administration, whether his rank is high or low, civilian or military, should interpret my words here tonight as an excuse to censor the news, to stifle dissent, to cover up our mistakes, or to withhold from the press and the public the facts they deserve to know. But I do ask every publisher, every editor, and every newsman in the nation to re-examine his own standards and to recognize the nature of our country's peril. In time of war, the government and the press have customarily joined in an effort based largely on self-discipline to prevent unauthorized disclosures to the enemy. In times of clear and present danger, the courts have held that even the privileged rights of the First Amendment must yield to the public's need for national security. Today, no war has been declared, and however fierce the struggle may be, it may never be declared in the traditional fashion. Our way of life is under attack. Those who make themselves our enemy are advancing around the globe. The survival of our friends is in danger, and yet no war has been declared. No borders have been crossed by marching troops. No missiles have been fired. If the press is awaiting a declaration of war before it imposes the self-discipline of combat conditions, then I can only say that no war ever posed a greater threat to our security. If you are awaiting a finding of clear and present danger, then I can only say that the danger has never been more clear, and its presence has never been more imminent. It requires a change in outlook, a change in tactics, a change in missions by the government, by the people, by every businessman or labor leader, and by every newspaper. For we are opposed around the world by a monolithic and ruthless conspiracy that relies primarily on covert means for expanding its sphere of influence, on infiltration instead of invasion, on subversion instead of elections, on intimidation instead of free choice, on guerrillas by night instead of armies by day.
All right, so there you have, we've got a minute and a half left, so that's President Kennedy warning us.
Yeah, those are the warnings that we did not heed, or our parents didn't heed, back in 1961 and again 1981 from Reagan. I just wanted to mention one thing that came to me while I was listening to this, and that is, back in the 60s, we had the busing thing down in Boston. I lived in the area, and I was thinking about this. They talked about the civil rights movement. Just so everybody knows, and this is for the blacks out there, the government screwed you by telling you got civil rights now. If you're granted civil rights, you're granting those rights by the government. And if they grant them to you, they can take them away. Your rights are unalienable, and they're given to you by your creator, God, or nature. However you want to look at it, whatever your beliefs are, that's entirely up to you. I didn't ask the government to speak today at the studio. I just did it because it's my right, and I'm going to exercise my right to do that.
We're about out of time here.
Yeah, I just wanted to mention that. Thank you, Dean. Help Sue and Jerry DeLemus. Please look up the National Liberty Alliance, and also educate yourself. This is more about you and your kids and your family than anybody else.
Thank you so much for watching our show over the last couple of years. Richie and I wish you farewell, and stay tuned on the YouTube channel. We will have some posts there in the future. Thank you so much. Have a great week.
Take care.